Today we would be discussing the poem When to the Sessions of Sweet Silent Thought, a sonnet written by William Shakespeare. And you know what a sonnet is by now, and how Shakespeare writes his sonnets. What is the form of Shakespearean sonnet? It is written in 14 lines, and it is written in three quatrains and one couplet. Three quatrains have a rhyme scheme of A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, and the couplet has a rhyme scheme of G G, and it is written in iambic pentameters. So this is almost summing up of what we had talked of Shakespearean sonnet earlier. Now we come to the present poem by William Shakespeare, which is there in your syllabus, When to the Sessions of Sweet Silent Thought. Now, in this poem, the poet is talking about his past memories, or he's brooding over things which have passed, which are no more there, or his failures, or his sufferings which he had suffered in past, and they continue till now. When to the sessions of sweet silent thought. Now, this poem begins with a word called sessions. Sessions of sweet silent thought. Sessions are, sessions as if some judge is holding a session. When to the sessions of sweet silent thought. Sweet silent thought, pensive thoughts. I summon up, that is, the poet is summoning up remembrance of things past. Now, when there are sessions, when are periods when the poet is in a pensive mood, he has sweet silent thoughts. He summon up. Summon up is calling up, as if somebody. The image of court is continuing. He's calling for some court appearance. Someone. I summon up remembrance. He is summoning up remembrances of things past, things which are no more there. I sigh the lack of many a things I sought. I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought. He's failing over things. He is weeping over things which he wanted, which he was seeking earlier, and with old woes, new wail my dear times waste. And in this whole exercise, when he's thinking of his past losses or his past sufferings, or he's thinking of people he loved, or he's thinking of precious friends who are no more there, or who are no more his friends, or they are no more living. He is talking about all those things in a very nostalgic manner, and he's talking of loss in general, and he's somewhere greatly injured or disappointed by his past behavior, or his failures, or his losses, or he's sort of regretting many things. So when he says, when to the sessions of sweet silent thought, I summon up remembrance of things past. I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old woes new wail my dear times waste. And with old woes, old sufferings, old disappointments, new wail, new agonies, my dear times waste. I waste my own time with my old sufferings or old disappointments, and with these old sufferings my new disappointments are added, and in this way I waste my dear precious time. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow? He's weeping, and he's it is there is almost a flood of tears in his eyes, and unused to flow. I never wanted to cry like this. I was not the person who could cry like this. For precious friends hid in death's dateless night. And he's talking of his friends. He's mourning or wailing over the loss of his friends who are hid somewhere, who are not visible to him, who has lost, or who are no more living in this world, and they have been taken away by death's dateless night. Now this phrase in itself has been called very chilling phrase, because death is dateless. Nobody knows when it would come, and it is a dateless night. Dateless night means it is all dark. You do not know from where it comes from, and where would it take you. So the ambiguity and the darkness associated with it makes it all the more chilling. For then can I drown an eye unused to flow for precious friends hid in death's dateless night and weep afresh. Now, whenever he thinks about the past losses, he gets nostalgic or he gets disappointed. He is all the more pensive, and weep afresh, weep again for and weep afresh love's long since cancelled woe. And he weeps afresh for those woes which have been cancelled long since. Means whenever he thinks about those woes or those sufferings or those disappointments, he makes up his mind once again every time that he would not be thinking about them, he would not be wailing over them, and he is sort of cancelling those woes. Cancelling means he's removing them from his life whenever they come in his mind, or whenever he feels disappointed about them. But they have been long since cancelled, and still they reoccur, they come again and again, and they disturb him and mourn the expense of many a vanished sight. And he's talking of many a vanished sight. He's earlier also said that he's talking of friends who are hid somewhere. He cannot see them. They have been taken away by death's dateless night. And now he says that many of them are like a vanished sight to him. They are no more visible to him, vanished, disappeared. And mourn the expense is his expense, he's occurring, he's wailing, or he's being aggrieved. So this is the expense, this is the cost which he's paying. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone? Can I grieve at grievances foregone? Means he's cancelled woe, means he had cancelled such memories, and decided that he would not think about them. Now, grievances foregone, something which has passed, these grievances have passed. So every time he's saying the theme of reoccurrence, the theme of something happening again and again, theme of something for which the poet is being made accountable for. So this theme is occurring again and again in every line. There is a, just as the woes come back again and again, the poet somewhere wants to tell you in every line that this is a repetition, this happens again and again in his life. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone, and heavily from one woe to woe tell over. And he with a heavy heart is thinking of one woe, and then he's thinking of the other, then he's thinking of the next. So in this way, it is almost as if somebody is shuffling the pages of an account book, and on every page there is a debt for that person, and he has to pay for that debt. So it is like he is sitting on an account book, and his account book of losses, account book of memories, account book of things which have passed. So he's mulling over failures and suffering, and is thinking about them again and again, and that account stands. And it appears, he is somewhere added that with the old woes, new woes are also added. So the whole description is as if it has been a money transaction, or some loan had been taken by the author, and he's again and again not only paying for the loan, the original amount for the loan, he's paying the interest as well. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone, and heavily from woe to woe tell over the sad account of fore bemoaned moan. Fore bemoaned again, which I have mourned for, which I have wailed for, which I have cried for many times. I am again and again crying for the same thing. the sad account, the account which holds against me, which I knew pay as if not paid before. I knew pay means I paid new. I paid again. I pay it today, and I have paid it earlier also, as if I have not paid before. But if the while I think of thee, dear friend, if the while I think of thee, you, thee means you, dear friend, if I think of you, my dear friend, all losses are restored and sorrows end. If I think of you, my losses, because earlier he was talking of all his financial losses, then he was talking of uh, his emotional breakdown at not having his friends anymore. So all emotional or financial losses, they have been restored with the memory or with the very thought that there is a friend who is still there and he can think of him. So this poem has I would like to refer to many words like sessions or grievances, summons, expenses, account, paid, losses. They are, as in our earlier sonnet also I had pointed out, that this language or these words, they come from money transaction, or here the sessions and summons, they come from a language of court, as if somebody is summoned in the court for doing something wrong. And besides this, I would like to tell you that the theme of loss, the theme of theme of disappointment, the pain of memory, the pain of past, the pain of things which are no more there, the pain of friends who are no more there, or the pain of failures, or pain of being wrong or being wronged. All these types of pains are there, as if the person has opened an account book, and it is an account book of his life, and in this book there are so many debts and very little credits which are rewarded to him. So these debts are his emotional debts or his own failures, or somewhere he uses those financial terms as well to describe. These financial terms are used to describe that how many losses he has. But at the end of the poem, he talks of his friend, and the whole poem is in a pensive mood, and suddenly he takes an optimistic turn and he talks of his friend, and he says that no, all these losses are nothing to me, because you are there by my side, and all these losses are restored when you are there. Some people think that there are some critics who have not approved of the couplet, and they say that these last lines are weak, and they are sort of you can say that they do not intellectually match with the other lines of the poem, and they are artificial, or this is an unusual end. Shakespeare has devoted many of his sonnets for his has written many of his sonnets for his friend, but this sonnet is also written for his friend, but especially the way Shakespeare has been describing in every line about his failure, and just in the last line he takes a U-turn, that sudden change of mood or sudden optimistic note is it is not taken very normally, or it is not in the tone of the entire poem. So but Shakespeare is Shakespeare, and as I have said earlier also, that it is unique of Shakespeare. In my previous lecture on his other poem, I said this and emphasized upon this, that he takes a U-turn, and he's talking very philosophical, and suddenly he would talk of materialistic thing. In the same way, when he's talking of materialistic thing, suddenly he would talk about a philosophical thing. So this is unique with Shakespeare, and this is his style, and we'll have to accept his style the way it is. Besides this, it is celebrating a feeling of friendship. It is celebrating an idea of being friendly with someone. It is harboring a theme of dependence upon a friend. The author is telling you that he cannot function without his friend. His life is useless. His life is meaningless without his friend, and his friend is a panacea for all his suffering. And if his friend is there, he may not lament about anything in his life. And this is he talks of his dependence, his overwhelming dependence upon his friend. So somewhere it is celebration of friendship as well. So and the more it is juxtaposed against a series of failures or a series of pain, the outcome is, for Shakespeare, the outcome could have been more beautiful. So that is why he has justified the 12 lines of quatrain, juxtaposed the 12 lines of quatrain with this couplet, which is totally optimistic. Those totally pensive 12 lines have been juxtaposed with these two lines of couplet, which are totally positive, so or optimistic. And as I have said, that he somewhere wanted to give you the message that his friend is supreme in his life, and he is, if he is there, he need not worry about anything in his life.